Hey everyone, it's DFA, welcome back to the channel, and yes, the Russian CVs have finally been released into the game. Of course, we will take a look at them, because the playstyle is a bit unusual. Let us just start with the TRX Serov to provide a couple of guidelines on how to do well with these things. Let's take a look at its stats first. So here we have the Serov next to the other tier 6 CVs, and immediately we notice that the survivability it's not very good. Only the Japanese is doing worse. The maneuverability is absolutely excellent on the other side. So the top speed is very good at 34 knots, and all the other stats are super nice. Concealment is also quite good at 8 kilometers, so you will be able to stay quite close to the action with that thing, and that's actually what we're going to do in the gameplay. The main guns, they're also not bad. You get 8 100mm guns, decent range, 7 kilometers, decent damage, 25,000, and a decent turret rotation, 12 degrees, so you will be able to use them and get them on target fairly easily. No secondaries, of course, and yeah, that's where the good news ends, I'm afraid, because you're getting 15 dive bombers, 2 squadrons of 3, so far so good, but only 13,000 HP. These things, yeah, they're going to get shot down, they're going to get dropped like flies, so you will have to be very careful on the way you're using them. And you also get a fairly average, well, it's not average, it's actually not very good, chance of setting fires with these things. Torpedo bombers are a little bit better, 2 squadrons of 4, quite unique at tier 6, so a very good alpha strike with the torpedo bombers. Not really, because the torpedo damage it's not really up to the other tier 6 planes, and the HP it's also the same, only the flooding chance is actually fairly decent, and you will be able to generate quite a lot of floodings with these things. And finally the the fighters. Let's talk about the fighters while there are no fighters. Ouch. So you don't have a lot of planes and you have no fighters to protect them. That's going to be quite tricky. Luckily you do get a decent amount of AA. So high maneuverability, decent fire and flooding chances, but yeah, a very limited amount of planes and no fighters to protect them. Interesting. And so, wow, how are we going to be playing that thing? Well, the first thing we will do is we are not going to send our planes right away, we are going to preserve them. That's number 1. Number 2, we are going to be identifying ships on our team that are very likely to set the other ships on fire. For example, that Sirius, that's a prime candidate. It's going to be shooting HE all the time. The chunking could have been a good one as well, but I'm choosing to follow that Sirius. And I'm gonna watch what he's doing, so I'm going to be following him. I'm going to get as close as I can to the action, but I am absolutely not going to get involved at this stage. Remember, you do not have a lot of HP, but there you go, there is a New Mexico right in front of us. There is a Vaser on the enemy team, the fighters are right between me and a potential target, so yeah, I cannot really use my planes right now. I have to preserve them as much as I can, and I'm going to play the fire and flooding chance anytime I get the chance with that thing. So concretely you have to observe what's happening on the battlefield, stay close to the ships of your team that are very likely to be causing fires on the enemy team, and sure enough there I have an opportunity to be finishing an enemy ship. I'm going to see if I can take it. I'm going to follow or attack that Leander. Hopefully the fighters of the Vaser are going to be following him, but yeah, let's see what happens. I mean, it's really the name of the game with that thing. You have to make your strikes count, because you're not going to get too many of them, and here we do have New Mexico that is just set on fire. I'm going to see if I can actually go some extra flooding, because it's not damage, it's not trying to damage con it. That's fine, I will give him an incentive to do so. He's just been flooded. And then you notice 2 things. Number 1, so I'm indeed going to lose a fair amount of planes, but the enemy fighters are going to follow my squadrons on top of my fleet, and they're going to get deleted in the process. So the next wave will certainly be a lot more efficient, And now that that New Mexico has actually damaged gone, I can focus him and hopefully set him on fire again and flood him again. And that is how you play these things. You make your strikes count. You stay as close as you safely can to the action. You do not reveal your position. You observe what is happening, and every time you have an opportunity to make, there you go, that's how you do it, baby. Every time you have an opportunity to make strike count, you take it, and then you observe again. So really you have to watch the position of the enemy fighters all the time, and here the squadron is completely weakened, completely inefficient, and we can safely finish that New Mexico, set him on fire, flood him again, and there you go. That's the first ship we delete in that game. Now, there is no big concentration of AA on the enemy team. There are no fighters in the air, so I can play the Serov relatively safely. Notice that I'm always staying quite close to the action. The enemy targets that I have are like maybe 10 kilometers away, so I'm not really, how would you say it? I'm not committing to any gunfight at this stage, but I really want to minimize the flight time of my planes, because they're not dealing a lot of damage as well, so you really have to stay, and you do have the maneuverability to do it, you can get away from tricky situations very quickly. That's a very interesting situation there. We just used one of our Diamonders to finish a bot battleship, and we do have an Icarus who is putting himself in a very complicated position. He absolutely cannot maneuver, so it's an easy target for me, sending one squadron to finish him. There you go, not a chance to dodge, and I'm using the other squadron to hopefully hit that Hawkins and cause a flood, and there I will be able to play the fire and flooding game again. And sure enough, this is what happens. We're pretty lucky with this one already. And the enemy fighters are there, but that's okay. I can be a little bit less careful with my planes. Only 2 ships on the enemy team left, so it's a fairly safe thing. It's not going to be able to deplane me anyway, because I was a bit careful at the beginning of the game. And while the fighters of the Weser are taking care of my bombers, that gives me an opportunity to put a couple of torpedoes into him. Here we go again. Observing the battlefield, he has been set on fire, which means I now do get a good chance of flooding him. And while we are doing that, I'm going to get into the gun range of that Hawkins, so unfortunately we did not set him on fire, but that's okay. I will simply be finishing with my guns, because remember, they're actually fairly good, and I still have a lot more hit points than he has. So it's going to be an easy thing, sure enough. Bye, and in the meantime I think we flooded that Weser. So you see that's a game where we really played the fire and flooding game. I'm not going to say to perfection, but quite well. And to be honest, I could have been a little bit closer to the action there, entering B and being closer to that Weser, but I think that I took an appropriate amount of risk in that game, managed my planes very well. And so that's how you have to play that thing. You get as close as you can, you don't reveal your position, you observe every opportunity to be setting ships on fire or flooding them. You observe the position of the enemy fighters, see where they are not in a position to intercept, and basically you make every strike count. As far as I'm concerned, I'm really enjoying playing that thing. I'm not super consistent with it. It's certainly not one of the best tier 6 CVs, but certainly a welcome addition to the game and an interesting playstyle to discover and master. So there you go, hope that was useful for you. I will reviewing the rest of the line a bit later on. In the meantime, stay safe, take care. That was DFA signing out, bye bye!